The GeOnG 2022 closing session aimed at giving some insights as to what we have learned as a sector to further prevent and respond to the changes brought about by the climate crisis. It wrapped up 3 days of exploration and discussions on the topic. We heard from Pierre Gallien, who spoke with his two hats of member of the editorial board of Alternatives Humanitaires on the one hand, and Director of Innovation, Impact and Information at Humanity and Inclusion on the other hand, as well as from Maeve de France, Project Manager at CartONG. As an introduction, Pierre reminded us that it was the first time this issue was ever discussed in the information management community, and that although we can be proud of the value and power of information management in addressing the environmental crisis, there's still little structured reflection on how our IM practices can also be improved to reduce the environmental impact. His learnings after 3 days went over the fact that the latest technology is not always a must, but should be thought through carefully, that we need to pay better attention to making the equipment we use more sustainable, that the life cycle of our data needs to be improved, for example, learning to delete what's no longer needed to reduce its footprint, and that mutualization as a sector is key to make more of less. Maeve added to this 3 elements. That even though we are the size of the bubblegum industry, as Lars Peters, director of ACAPS, reminded us in the entrance keynote address, that it's our responsibility as citizens, organisations and as a sector to get the ball rolling on the topic, and that one simple action can lead to much more. That a lot of what came out of the event is common sense, on the fact that we should rationalise more our use and the setup of our systems. That even though we will already know that we will have to adapt in the future, that there's at least a glimmer of hope in the fact that as a community we have shown that we have adaptation in our DNA. Pierre also raised 3 questions as food for thought. How can we balance the environmental do no harm of our practices with the short-term cost it can imply on the populations who benefit from our services in our context of intervention? We talk about responsible data management, but in the same way that we include data protection in this approach, should the environmental component not also be a core element to factor in? To what extent should an operational organisation develop its own skills versus be supported by external collaborations with specialist organisations? Pierre and Maeve then engaged with the participants by asking them to write down 3 thoughts of something they think will be possible to revisit IM in the era of environmental emergency. 1 at individual level, 1 at their organisation's level, and 1 at the sector level. We encouraged people to put their individual post-its in their pocket, their organisational one on themselves, and for the 3rd, we ran a participatory exercise using the snowball methodology. This led us to select collectively a number of the ideas that can be summarised in the following 3 points. The importance of proactive action concerning the greening of our IM systems, including our capacity to assess their environmental impact and a big focus on raising awareness on the topic. Mutualization and sharing yet again, be it data, software, ideas, resources, standards, with even the suggestion of creating a union of IM practitioners. And finally, moving beyond participation and properly involving local communities in the building of IM systems. Maeve then closed the 2022 edition of GeOnG with a thanking of all the participants and actors involved in making it such a successful edition,